Okay, so it looks like we have 13 people have joined us, and generally, Stacy, they keep hopping on as we go. Okay, so
All right.
good morning, and it's the 4th of October 2021, and this is Chris Schaefer moderating for Gilchrist Monday Morning Inspiration. And our guest speaker today is Stacy T. French. So the name of his lecture will be When Doing You Doesn't Work. And a quote he has here is, only when you stop doing what doesn't work can things get better. And this is attributed to Wendell Berry. So here's what his bio is. It says, often in life, we struggle to find ourselves, find what makes us happy, and decide where we are going. This comes in the context of 3 life questions. Who am I, which deals with my identity? What am I here for, which deals with my purpose in life? And 3, where am I going, which deals with my destiny? The phrase do you is not always applicable to our lives when we don't know who we are. Therefore, doing me is not necessarily in my best interest. As a believer and disciple in Christ, it is my best interest to do him, which means Christ. Stacy T. French is the senior pastor teacher of Faith Fellowship Community Church of Laurel, Maryland, a California native. Pastor French is a formal educator, having served as principal and school administrator for Progressive Christian Academy of Temple Hills, Maryland, and school administrator for Bread of Heaven Christian Academy. Pastor French has a Bachelor of Arts degree in Christian counseling and a Master of Divinity from Oral Roberts University. Pastor French resides in Baltimore County along with his wife, Shauna D. French, and their 2 children, Aaron and Zamira. And without further interruptions, here's Pastor Stacy.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And just to go ahead and dive in, because I know everyone's time is precious. The title of my message of Words of Inspiration is What Do We Do, or When Doing You Doesn't Work. Several years ago, I read a book by Russell Simmons. Russell Simmons is a hip hop mogul. For the famous group, he's the brother of one of the guys in Run DMC. And so he wrote a book called Do You. And so when reading the book, there were some things that struck out or stood out to me that caused me to think about where I was in life and to really look at the phrase, do you. And what I thought about is that in my own life, and I'm quite sure that many of you can attest to this, is that after you receive the degree, after you receive the job, after you receive the desired home, after you receive the car that you so desired, life still was not happy for you. And oftentimes we thrust ourselves into tangible things trying to find happiness. And so we dive into our careers, we hold our families and things of great interest and high regard, still to find no inner peace or joy. And so when we're doing us, sometimes doing us is not enough. And so we have to ask ourselves those 3 questions. Number 1, what am I here for? I don't believe that anyone on the Zoom call, as well as myself, came into existence by happenstance or coincidence. I don't believe that. I believe that everyone was destined to be here in what we refer to as the land of the living. In other words, it wasn't some Big Bang theory. It wasn't something that just happened in the cosmos, but we were all designed and purposed to be here. And so we have to ask the question, what am I here for? What am I passionate about? I often tell people, my parishioners, that your career is not necessarily your life's calling. In other words, for those of you who are working for Gilchrist, you've got to believe that life is much more than working for Gilchrist. It's a means, it's a source of livelihood. You receive a check, you're compensating for an 80+ hour week, but there's much, much more than that. And so we have to ask the question, what is my purpose? What am I here for? And then along with that question, we have to ask, where am I going? What's my destiny? What is the path? What is the journey that I am to take during this life. The good book says that we have 70 years of life, which equals to 70 years. I'm 53. And so if that's the case, I have less than 20 years of life left to live. And so what I want to do is live the life or the rest of my life to the fullest. I want to maximize every moment. I don't want to get up, as they say, on the wrong side of the bed, going out into a world and just allowing things to just happen. I want to be in control of my day. And sometimes we allow things to just happen and we have the que sera, sera mentality or attitude, but that doesn't help us. How many of you, and this is a rhetorical question, how many of you have had the feeling on Fridays, wow, it's 4 o'clock, it's 5 o'clock, and you're just so happy to get off work? Why is that? Why is it that we don't find so much fulfillment rather, in our jobs? Is that's because that's not necessarily what our calling is. We might be passionate about helping others. We might be passionate about going to work, working for Gilchrist, working for Bank of America. I work for the state. I'm right across the street from you all at DHS. But I realize that this is not my life's calling. And so I have to think about, why am I here? Where am I going? And then, of course, here's the big question. Who am I? This deals with my identity. Yes, I come from a lineage. My last name is French. And so my lineage, I come from a group of Frenchmen. But even more so than that, who am I to the world? I have to make my mark on the world. If I were to name 2 names, probably the first thing that would come to mind is what they were known for. If I say Tiger Woods, automatically you think of golf. If I say Michael Jordan, you think of basketball. If I say Steve Jobs, you think of Apple products. Their names are associated with what they did or what they're doing in the earth. And so the question is, what are you doing? Is what you're doing what you have been designated to do? Is what you're doing, is it working for you? Are you happy with it? Is this as good as it gets for you? To go to work, to watch the Ravens win and be happy on Monday morning. Is that the end of it? I would hope not. I would hope that we would all look deep into ourselves and ask the fulfilling questions. What am I here for? What's my purpose? Where am I going? Who am I? I don't want to just be just a number. And I think sometimes we find ourselves living our lives as though we're just numbers. And because of that, there's always a number in front of us. There's always a number on the back side of us. So I don't want to live my life as a number. I want to live my life as a person that was destined to be here. That was destined to be here. And so each day when I wake up in the morning and I go out into this world, I want to make my mark. I want to bring happiness to someone, even if it's just one person. Then my living, my life is not in vain. I think it's vain. The wisest man in the world, we refer to him as Solomon, who's King David's son. And so he says, vanity surrounds me. And even with all of the vanities that surround me, I'm still not happy. We have to ask the question, is doing me, is it working? Is it working? And then you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. Well, it's got me to this point. I've been happy up until this point. But longevity. Asking yourself what you're doing today from 9 to 5. Is this as good as it gets? Is there more to me? Is there more living inside of me? That's when you know what you're really made of. I'm quite sure many of you have seen the Ford commercial about the F-150, and it shows how the truck is going up the hills and the terrain, and at the end of the commercial it says, built Ford tough. All of us have been built tough by the great creator, but sometimes life can feel as though it's tumbling down and the weight of the world is upon our shoulders. But the question is doing you really working for you? Is there something else that I can reach and grab a hold to that will bring fulfillment to my life? I would suggest that there is, but I can't answer that for you. I don't know what it is. You have to do what we refer to as a soul searching and find out the answers to those three questions. But I assure you this year, the answers are probably right in front of you. And perhaps you've overlooked it. Perhaps you've bypassed it. Or perhaps you didn't want to accept it because what's in front of you is not really what you signed up for. And so in my bio that she read, doing me does not always work. It may work some of the time, but it does not always work, because I have to realize that I'm not here for my own self. I'm not here to please myself. I'm not here to bring on self-gratification, because at the end of the day, I will keep searching and yearning and looking for self-gratification moments. But the greatest fulfillment of mankind is when our lives can have impact and a positive effect on others. That's really what we're here for. Many of you are serving in the field of human services, helping people. I work for DHS, Department of Human Services, helping children. So the question is, where do you go from here? Do you continue to live your life as is, doing you? Or can you reach further? Can you reach deeper and find out what's the greater in front of you? There's something greater that's in front of you. But there's only one way of finding out, and that's asking those three questions. So, the challenge before us all is to answer those three questions. I would like to give you a homework assignment, and you don't have to do it, but make fun out of it. Ask yourself, write down the three questions. What am I here for? Who am I? Where am I going? And then take the time to answer them and see what you come up with. See what you come up with. I assure you, you'll be amazed. I believe it was the great film writer of Hamlet, Shakespeare, William Shakespeare says, to thy own self be true. We have to be true to ourselves. And sometimes in doing us, as it relates to doing me, sometimes we're not truthful with ourselves. Therefore, when you're not truthful with yourself, you don't find fulfillment in life. You're just navigating as though we're a nomad, just wandering around. Just wandering around. Life should not be on a course of just wandering around. There should always be a set journey. Anytime for those of you who have taken cruises, that ship is on a course. Whether it's going across the Pacific or the Atlantic, it's on a course to the next destination. our life should be, on a set course, not just circling around. There's no fulfillment in that. So I asked the question, is doing you working for you? Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen, and I guess I can take some questions or listen to some of your comments.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Stacy.
very much, Stacy.
People remember to
to
unmute.
unmute.
I did have a question about the three questions. Remember, and I got where am I going? What am I here for? But there was another. That one.
Where am I going? Which deals with destiny. Who am I? Deals with identity. And what am I here for? Dealing with purpose.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So we're getting
We're getting
a chat. I don't.
chat.
Says sometimes in relation to family, it's not easy to deal with identity.
Okay, so the person who wrote that, can you elaborate a little bit more into that, please?
That was Jenny.
Yes. My thought is because you can be or considered one thing to certain people in your family, and they may not know what's really inside you. No, I hear an echo. I don't know if you do.
I did hear it, but go ahead. I can hear through it.
It's just difficult because some of your family sees you one way. Where you work, another person, and it's sometimes difficult to mesh those various identities. So how do you do that?
Well, I think what the word or the phrase, we've heard it said, actions speak louder than words, and people will always remember you more for what you do than for what you say, because our humanity, just by nature, we look at people. We're looking at them to see what they do. And so if you would begin to live your life through the actions of your purpose, they will begin to see what you're doing, because really what you're doing is going to outweigh what you say. Now, hopefully, what you're doing will line up with what you're saying, because they will remember what you've done. For example, and I'll just use this, and many of you have heard it, the story of the Good Samaritan. Well, the Good Samaritan was the guy that saw the guy who was down in his luck. The guy who he helped was mugged, was robbed, and left for dead. There were two other fellas that walked past him who were of faith-based religions. They didn't help him, but the guy who really wasn't of any type of faith base, he was the one that helped him. And so that's why what he did is recorded as the Good Samaritan. It wasn't so much of what he said, because we don't know if he said anything. It was what he did. He helped the man that was down on his luck and didn't ask anything for it. So if you will begin to live your life, living your best life in front of your family, they will begin to see who you are, because what you're doing will radiate, it will come out of you, and they'll have no choice but to accept you. Now, they may try to, let's say, reject or deny, but your work will speak for itself. So if that's some help, that's what I would suggest to you. don't worry about trying to silence the naysayers. The best way to do it is to do the work and let them see.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
that
so much for that
information.
information.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Okay, we're having some
Okay, we're having some
audio problems.
audio
So what I'm
problems.
going to
So
do
what
is,
I'm gonna do is,
Stacy,
Stacy,
you're the only one who's
you're the
able
only
to
one
do
who's able
good
to do good
audio. So I think
audio.
what we'll
So
do
I
is
think what we'll
sign
do
off
is sign off
and say thank you very
and say
much
thank
for
you very
your
much for your
words of wisdom
words of
and
wisdom
certainly
and
challenging
certainly
three
challenging
questions.
3 questions.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm so glad
All
your
right,
I'm so
audio
glad
was
your
okay.
audio was okay.
All right. All right, everyone. You have a wonderful day.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you.
perhaps down the road sometime we can do this again. All
Okay,
right.
thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Okay, thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you so much.